Alright, this film brings this project along hopefully to the point where you can make the decisions to allow us to make construction drawings for the project. This is where the couple photos that we had worked with when I was at the meeting on the 24th of May, where this was this large thing here, and we pulled it back some, pulled it back a little bit more, and we were kind of about there at the end and looked at the various end alternatives like this. One of them wasn't shown. See, one of these alternatives isn't being shown because once we made that wide, then I had to think about trusses across there. So these next photos will show some of the options available if we use trusses and stick framed. Okay, so the first thing I did was, I didn't like how close this was to this window, and there was no real need for that to be that close. And I also wanted this a little bit further over that way, so it goes over a little bit and it gets wider. So when we widen it out to this, we call this out as a final width, and this is going to be 24'8" by 19'4", the concrete pad portion. That means if we continue to stick frame it like this, where it's this really high ceiling, 14 feet at the peak, these become 2x8s instead of 2x6s, and the ridge beam becomes 2 14s instead of the 2 9.5s on the former little stick frame model. The margin beams go from 2 9.25 to 2 11.25 inch LVLs, and then additionally you would need 2 14-inch LVLs going across here. Whereas with trusses, you would still need these two margin beams, 2 11.25 here and 2 11.25 there. And if you wanted this bar across there, you would have to have some sort of member to carry that, probably a couple 11.25. But so the difference then between trusses and this stick framing is this main beam at the ridge, these 2 14s by 22 feet or so, and these 2 14s here. And I priced those 4 members at Menards last week. Right now that would add about $800 to the cost. So know that going in. You probably still need to buy something across here, because I really don't see you leaving this open across here, not having this bar, and it needs something to carry it, and it's 20 some feet, so that'll be LVLs. So really, it's really these two top ones, which run about $450 altogether, and then some more here because it's heavier when you do the stick framing. That is the stick framing, and that's the upshot of the stick framing. Plus there's probably a little more material on the ceiling since you've got more surface here. So yes, you'll notice this end beam got higher to accommodate that heavier 14-inch pair of LVLs, which have to pick up that end load from that ridge beam. But if you go down to trusses and eliminate that ridge beam altogether, you saw this comes down in height as well, because you really just need a couple of 11s coming across there to hold that. This shows this end open like this, and then these are trusses up here. Margin beams remain the same. Inside the thing then, with the stick framing, the 2x8s, the beams, etc., it's about 14 feet to the peak. And with the trusses, it's about 12'5". I'm not showing the trusses, but they're there. It's about 12'5". Your great room ceiling is 11'8", or very close to 11'8", so that should give you some idea of the scale. And so that is that final plan, 19'4" on the concrete and 24'8" on the concrete. This little patio as shown, I don't think that's going to be enough to do much for you in terms of what you're looking to do. I'm showing some furniture out here just arranged so that you get a feel for how much space you have or don't have to work with, depending on what your plans are. I assume you might want to put a TV up here at some point, but you will have to let me know if I can help with that in any way. In terms of the patio itself, as I said, I think that south patio as shown is too small. And this enlarges it from 212 to 240 square feet and makes it a little bit more usable at least. But I just horsed around with a few other things. This brings it to 315 feet if we just came straight down, staying flush across here. And then this was the closest I could get to any kind of a free-form kind of thing. There just wasn't really a lot of space to. swing out here and turn around with just smooth curves instead of these geometric shapes. The Easter egg, it was just an attempt, and I don't think that works at all. Or the Santa boot is another alternative. There's a big 6 foot by 3.5 or 4 foot wide table with big chairs, and the umbrella, that's a 10 foot umbrella on that patio. But I went further along here, and I didn't really, I don't know, I could take or leave that. I didn't model that from the outside. For you to look at that, I don't believe. But I went to this, which is the same size, 465 square feet, but it pulls back. Instead of 28'7", it's closer to 27 foot. It gets you that same square footage. So for now, until you tell me where you want to go with that, I've left it at that. But the other portion of all this then was I talked briefly about this, where Rich has to isolate these column piers, these column foundations, for cracking from the rest of the slab anyway, which might lend itself to the way you're thinking about some of this concrete might be dyed, stamped, etc. And this is kind of, this was a plan D here. I believe this is plan D, and that was showing what that would kind of feel like or look like. But out here, this gives you a little better idea of that. This was that little small one, and then we go out, put a little further, and then this is the Santa boot. And I'm not showing the egg, but this was the final one that I was going to horse around with. This is E, and this is with some furniture on E. And then if you were to do something with those margins, with those isolated slabs, I don't know whether you would make that step same color or not. Maybe it's like that. In terms of the exterior shading, apparently this is the market leader drop shade, particularly for drop down shades. And I did not check with them how wide they can make them, but I'm assuming pretty darn wide. And you can see that actually a thing like this could actually be mounted against those columns if this was needed, something like that. A drop down shade could be used, but you would have to have some verticals beside those columns. Here they've done a really neat and clean job, I guess. But so yeah, you can see very wide openings. Actually probably going to be mounted on the outside possibly, or the inside, and clear anything that's in the way possibly without a track. But that might be something to think about going down the road. That's one of the advantages of having that bar all the way across at the west end. I've done them with that completely open, but it's not something I really prefer. So if that becomes our final footprint in size, then these are the final kind of outside looks that can be done with that. This is the stick frame all the way. This is the same stick framing but with a closed end gable. You can't really see it here, but that ceiling here will drop down when we go to trusses with a closed end gable. And there's trusses with an open end gable. Then the next thing I did, and I would really pretty much attach to this next move, which increases the size of those columns from 8-inch shafts to 10-inch shafts. You may differ in your opinion, but I like, and then this finished beam goes to a 10-inch wide beam. It's just a large structure, and this seems just a little spindly, and at least this doesn't seem too thick. So maybe 9 is the actual answer, but those are shown as 10 inches finished. And these bottoms, these are all these, from manufacturers, Pacific columns or wherever you can get them. But these can be built up of anything, cedar, some sort of exterior material, if Rich or whomever wants to put together those themselves. I don't know what these are going to cost out at. And then we have, once we get some patio work in here, we have that as the final look with that. I kind of like that if we were going to use trusses, and probably will. I think 14 feet. I don't know. It's a bit much to me, but I like it open up there though, because it just seems that's a lot of cash to spend to have this kind of box inside like that. So I don't know what else we can do at the end. You probably, with these trusses, you could just leave this a completely open triangle. These pieces don't even need to be there. I haven't shown that. If you want me to show that, I can. But those pieces wouldn't need to be there with these trusses. But I like the 10-inch columns, I really do. But that should bring us somewhere where we can make some final kind of decisions, I hope. Let me know though if there's anything else I can do. And I have not heard back from the door manufacturer, but I will put some pressure on them so we know whether or not that can be a feasible part of the plan. Okay, I'm really happy with where I arrived at on this. I thought it would be easy going in, and I thought it would be quick. There were some challenges, and I'm satisfied where we ended up together, particularly on this wide width here. I really like that. But that's it. If I can do anything, let me know, and thanks very much. It's been fun.